You are watching another episode of Shane Solomon Meets, brought to you by the Cornwall Channel. I'm your host, Shane Solomon, and today I'm meeting Peter McGahan from Worldwide Financial Planning. So, Peter, welcome back to Cornwall Channel Studios.
Good to see you again.
It's always a pleasure to have you around these studios. Now, of course, you are an absolute financial god, and I bow down to having you in the studio. What a journey you've been on, and this series is all about meeting the people, not so much about the business. But tell me a little bit about your story, because you don't just become a financial god overnight, do you?
No, indeed, financial god. That's very kind of you. So, yeah. Where do you start? I suppose.
So your upbringing, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I suppose I was brought up in a pretty rough council estate in Northern Ireland, and as far as council estates go, it's up there. But I was really fortunate that I was running at the age of 10. So when a guy who I was running with said, "You got to get a good education," so because of that, I put my name forward for 11 plus. Next thing you know, I'm in a grammar school, which is kind of good. Mm-hmm. So kind of good upbringing. Obviously, tough times at the time from Northern Ireland. You had to navigate your way through stuff. But eventually then, but I was a grade A art student and a grade A math student. So I thought, what am I going to do? And it was obviously going to be art college, not. So, well, actually, everybody thought it was going to be art college, but I didn't go at the end. So because it was actually to do with something quite political. They didn't like my, who they thought I was when I went at art college, i.e. I was the wrong religion, so, and it was so I just said, I can't deal with this. And I went traveling, came back, and then went over to Cornwall to see my brother, and met the girl that I'm married to, and never went back. That's how it went. So then within that, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And I was in Manchester whilst my wife was studying brain injury up in Manchester. So I went up there to see her, and I was kind of being shoved to art college again. And next thing, my mum definitely wanted me to go to art college, but I knew I was going to be there for about 3 or 4 years, and I think it was about 19 at the time. So, and I thought, if I'm going to be here for 3 years, I may as well buy a house, because it's a waste of money otherwise. Mm-hmm. And in the process, the guy gives me advice was absolutely awful, and I thought I could do that.
Right.
And that's actually how it happened.
Really?
And, yeah, absolutely happened. He got out and got into some fancy car with a lovely watch and so on. I thought, God, that guy was terrible and he's awful. And so I just thought I can do that. So looked at the applications on the newspaper, and just off I went, just made my way through, and then just basically got through in a kind of the best way of, probably an apprenticeship would be the best way to put it. So within 6 months I was managing 18 people.
Really?
Yeah, 18 people.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I did that for 9 years, and then realized that I just got this kind of beefy promotion, and I thought, I'm uncomfortable here. This just doesn't fit with my values. I can't be independent. I can't look after people the way I want to look after them. I don't like getting up in the morning. I just knew I wasn't delivering. I wasn't getting nutrition out of it, and it was a beefy. If I got that salary today, you'd think it was tidy, But
sure.
But I was 30 years old, and I thought, I can't do this. Or 29, yeah. I thought I can't do this anymore. So I just resigned and set up Worldwide Financial Planning, and the rest is history.
And there we are. And to be honest, this podcast is never going to be long enough to talk about as much as I'd like to talk about and ask you. But what makes a good financial advisor, Peter? Because, I go to a lot of networking events with the Chamber, where business partners with the Chamber, your partnerships, and a lot of other big networks. And there's a lot of financial advisors out there. But what, in your opinion, makes a good financial advisor?
It's only my opinion.
Yes.
But if I was to look at what I think, they obviously have to be independent, because you're independent. You give every solution available to the customer. But that's just an aside. What really makes the difference is, I'm in an interview stage. I would, I think about this person. I think if something happened to me and my family are obviously vulnerable now, because I know all the financial answers. But if I'm not going to be there, but I'm above looking down. Not that I'll ever be up there, but if I'm looking down, I'll be looking down on my family, and there's a financial advisor, and it's the guy I'm interviewing, and he's there giving advice to my family. How comfortable would I be knowing I can't say anything, but I'd be going through the hell of watching it potentially, and that tells you an awful lot. So what are you asking then? What you're really asking is what are this person's values? You know, what are these person's values? So are they fair? Are they kind? Are they honest? You know, are they trustworthy? Trust is an extraordinary thing. You know, close your eyes and fall backwards. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Close. You know, but I've driven you somewhere, and I've stood and I said, now fall back. I'll catch you. Would you fall back? There's a real thing, very, very powerful thing. Now, those are really ingrained into my psyche. You know, very, very, very deep in. It's obviously part of the upbringing, and you know, I can let go of anything as long as I've got those. And my team, and particularly my management team, if you sit and with all of those guys around you, you just one by one, if you went around them, every one of them has those values. Mm-hmm. They're very and they're so proud to be working at the firm because of those values as well. So I think that's the difference. We focus an awful lot on people's skills, and then we get rid of people because of their attitudes. So I think if we start with the attitudes, and most people, if you get the attitudes right, then the skills will come afterwards, you know. So I'd say, you know, comfortably, it's values. Yeah.
Which is a great link, because of course I've been reading on social media about your recent award that you've got for the kind of kindness side of things, which is quite a big award as well. We can't even belittle it and kind of say, oh, it's just a little thing. It's quite a big accolade that you've recently been awarded. And so, you know, you're preaching what you teach pretty much. And how does that make you feel?
Awards, I get a bit embarrassed about them, but to a degree. And some things I do get embarrassed about them, but I don't, you know, pay too much attention to them, because those things can distract you away from really where you're going and what matters to you. Mm-hmm. But that award, when it came through in an email to say, you've got to be available in London, and I said, really? So as I started to read it, and then I forwarded across to Eleanor, and I said to Eleanor, just have a read what that says. And there's a photograph of my mum, actually, is all on my windowsill beside me. I've got a photograph of my dad, actually, my granddad and grandparents. They're all there. You know, just keeps you grounded. But
of course, I
actually turned around to her and said, "You'd be proud of that, wouldn't you, Mum?" So, and I really felt that. I don't mind saying to you, like, when I did fill up, I thought, you know, for somebody, and because I then realised how I got it and what was said and who said it, and the members of staff said it, and I thought, that'll do for me. You know, I can hang my boots up whenever, you know, things like that are said about you, because those people see you all the time. They see how you act in difficult situations. They see how you act in fun situations, etc. So I thought it was a brilliant thing. I really did, and especially when I got there and I saw who was there, who those people are, the difference they make in lives. I don't mind telling you this as well. There was one law firm that I spoke to who was there, and this lady who was speaking to, she said, I'm in charge of this with kindness in the UK. And she says, yes, I'm the international person in charge of kindness for our firm. I said, you both work for the same firm, and you've got people in charge of kindness for the world. And oh my God, you know, so you can see how people take that seriously. But the energy around that, you know, is fantastic, you know. So the energy around those people, that was magical. So.
And it seems so simple, kindness. Be kind, treat others as you wish to be treated yourself. But it is so important, and such a simple skill, I think, that people miss. And I think having awards and things like this and having kindness departments is a great way. You know, and I probably a lot of people say to me, Shane, you're too nice, you're too kind, you know, and I think, do you know what? No, I'm going to stick with this, you know, whether I'll ever be, you know, as successful as I want to be because of my kindness, I don't know. But I always believe that if you see it here, you can hold it here. So a lot of it's mindset as well. We've not even talked about that. And this is what I'm saying. Our podcast could go on for ages. There's so many things I'd love to talk to you about. But, you know, mindset's got to be a big part of your life as well, surely.
Yeah. If you think about you from a kindness point of view, so one of the greatest things is that if you're kind, because obviously you don't want to be telling people what you do, so you know, the different things you do, but you you spot it. My kids know they're with me. They know that I will stop and give homeless people food and drink and stuff like that. And like it or not, but I don't actually give them money, but
I'm the same. I'm the same.
So that, but I feel good about it. But the biggest thing about being kind and about being fair, with staying close to your values, about being honest, is that you know, and because you carry yourself. I know how you carry yourself. And what happens is that you carry yourself, and your expectations of the world and expectations of life are massive. Like, I expect to win the lottery without even winning a ticket. Buying a ticket. I never do win the lottery, obviously, because I don't do it. But I expect to, I have this expectation because you're always doing the right things and you're living your life in that way where you're being caring, you're being kind, you're living by those values, always looking out for people. And in the firm, I'm always doing it. But always when you're doing that, and you're looking out for society as a whole, that it's ingrained in you. So you carry yourself that way. You look for opportunities where you're expecting amazing things to happen because you fully expect they will happen. Fully expect it. I do. I honestly, I just think something amazing is going to happen. And when it doesn't, I go, that's a bit weird. That's a bit weird. Right, I honestly, I do, Yeah. And if I watch you carry yourself in that way as well, because your internal view of yourself, how you've programmed yourself, is you're said, well, I actually am. I'm this good person. I'm this good. I do great things. I care for society. I care for all the right stuff, and then everything just happens, and it just everything gravitates towards it. The law of magnetism, isn't it? So it doesn't always work. You always there's always a few bits of arbitrary unfairness in there that catches all of us out. But by and large, generally speaking, it goes the right way. So I think when you're doing these things, they're great messages to your own self. And that's a great person to speak to, is this person, because then that's what's going to get you up with excitement every morning. That's what's going to keep you going and doing the right things. So,
indeed. And surrounding yourself with like-minded people, good people inspiring and lift you up. And I know that I met someone recently through you. It was really funny because when we were talking, you was around the studio set and you saw our kitchen here, and you was talking about this chap who should come up here sometime. A friend of yours, a good friend of yours, and he's worked with Rick Stein for many years, and we're talking about Stefan. And I happened to be at Jack Stein's wedding, filming a band, and I walked into the pub, and then Stefan comes out, and I'm thinking, and people were saying hello to. Everyone was attracted to this guy, and I thought this has got to be the guy that you've talked about. So I was like, just going up to him bit. I thought, oh no, this guy's like a megastar. But I said, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I said, but I've got to just introduce myself. I said, I was with, I think, a friend of yours, Peter McGahan. And he was, oh, Peter, it was absolutely, But he took, time to speak to me and things like that. And he had loads of people there that, knew him. But, he just portrayed that real kindness and nice warmth and everything. And he just met me,
He's a beautiful man. Yeah, he really is. He's my best friend. And, I love the guy. I mean, you wouldn't have said that when you were younger, but as a guy I love, he's, we traveled around Japan together for the World Cup for 16 days. We just know how we both think. We both think the same way. We care about exactly the same stuff, but I often drop him into charity stuff, I'll call him and say, guess what you're doing shortly. And sometimes if I'm speaking to somebody from a charity perspective and I say, well, all right, okay, Stefan will do that. And they said, don't you want to ask him before? I said, no, I know his values. I know what he cares about. I know because his heart is bigger than, he's such a lovely, lovely, caring man, So, but that's another classic example of the law of attraction. So, and he just, everybody's gravitated towards him. He's such a lovely guy. So,
Well, again, I met him at a Cornwall Air Ambulance function as well. He was one of the chefs that was cooking there. So in that week, I've never met this guy before in my life, and I met him twice, through meeting you. And, there's no coincidence that these things happen. I need to wrap this.
Your vibe is your tribe, isn't it?
Absolutely. What you think about, you bring about. It's one of those things now that I could just talk to you phrases, but we can't because Mike's producing for us tonight. He's got a little one to get home to. And I like to keep these ones kind of short, but hopefully we'll do an in-depth one in the future.
Good crack,
But just to sum up, the world at the moment with the financial side of things, and this isn't advice, everybody, but this is Peter's opinion. are we doomed? You know, what's happening with the world? It will sort itself out, won't it?
Funny, I've just yes, it will. Yeah. I don't think the news are anywhere near as bad. The inflation isn't anywhere near as bad as it is. You sort those supply chains out. Stop with their proxy wars everywhere. Stop with all of that nonsense. You know, then your supply chains up. Stop poking in China's eyes and stop poking everywhere. Let people live. You know, our supply chains will open up. Your inflation will go through the floor. It's nowhere near. In summary, I've just written a column this week. Funny, I don't know when you're sending this podcast out, but it's actually about that. The central banks want to make people feel a bit uneasy.
Sure.
They want to do that, particularly it's corporations, because we have in the USA, and that's where your starting problems are, there's 1.7 jobs available per person. Right. Now, when you have that, you're in deep trouble, because at that point, everybody's going to be looking for wage increases. And once you've got wage inflation, your economy is finished. You're absolutely finished. And we can see the problems that we're having now. No, sorry, it's not problems. I don't want to be unfair to anybody wanting to strike, because I agree with them, because they've been unfairly paid and unfairly looked after. So they're being snapshotted the second. But what happens is the corporation is gets a lot of requests for increase in pay, which could put them through the floor. Then what happens is they pay out that money, then they've got to pass that on. So they increase the cost of their service, increase the cost of price. You're into a negative feedback loop, and then you're in trouble. And they want to squeeze that down. So trust me on this, by the way, trust me on this. They deliberately make you feel uncomfortable. That's a strategy. That is honestly a strategy. Central banks do that. They get the message out. And if you just go and Google the word UK recession, it's millions of entries over the last month. Yeah. So that's deliberately trying to get people just to slow it right down. And if you slow it down, you can avoid the big problems. I don't think we're in for as big as problems anywhere. I think the next year will be difficult.
Sure.
But I don't think anywhere near the sort of problems that they're talking about.
Well, that's
in short.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a great way. Optimistic. Let's be optimistic to finish the podcast anyway. Well, look, Peter McGahan, it's always a pleasure to have your energy around the studios. Thank you so much for supporting us as well in the past, for having some videos done with us. We really appreciated that, and hopefully we get to work with you some more as well. If you're not already connected with Peter, I'll make sure I tag you in my status on LinkedIn if people want to send you a request. It's up to you if you accept them, of course. But if you know of anyone doing anything remarkable here in Cornwall, or in fact the world, please drop me an email, shane@cornwallchannel.co.uk, and perhaps I can get you on a podcast in the near future. But for myself, Mr. Mike Spinks, who's been producing, and Peter McGahan, we will see you soon.